In the council meeting for the 29th of May. Remind we are being live streamed, so we will join our karakia together. Thank you. We've got an apology from Mose for lateness. He's home sick, so he's going to be joining in. So do we need to move that one or just note it? Just note it, because he is coming in. Public forum, we are meant to have David Christensen, and he hasn't appeared. Shall we give him another? We'll see what happens. Conflicts of interest declarations. Anybody got any conflicts of interest? Nothing on the papers? Okay. Notification of extraordinary business? Nothing. Confirmation of minutes from the 27th of March. I will move that. Any problems with any of those? Anybody? Yes? Yep, I was just asking if there was any problems, sorry. None? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Leggett. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. I've got a really long report, so I'm going to make it really short and just pull out a couple of things. Sorry, because it's been 2 months. You'll see it online, but it's been a very busy few months. We had the 100th birthday celebration at the Plymouton Boating Club. Obviously, the Grand Traverse was huge in our city again. We had Anzac Day. We've had the Rotorman flag raising. We had the opening of the road and the blessing of the Po, which is outstanding, by Taku at the Kenepuru Landings. Highly recommend you go and have a walk up there and have a look at the new ponds up there. They're looking awesome. I spoke at the Pacific Symposium. We had the Ngāti Toa and Well-Fed Soup Kitchen opening. That's going to be open every Monday from 5 to 7, which is absolutely awesome in the city. Not King's birthday though. And then we had yesterday the blessing of the new 2 new homes in Kōrero in Dido Place. So everything else is online or on the sheet if you want to read it. But sorry, there's too many things. Taku, anything from you?
Yeah, practically the same. Highlights for me also with those, but also the Mana College opening of their new facility was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, the Po on Kenepuru Drive. Sat there for a few minutes the other day, and it's just opened up a whole lot of traffic and walk traffic, and it was amazing the amount of traffic that comes in and out of there now.
Oh, they've been
rather
waiting,
than go right
yes.
around, rather than go right around and come onto the subdivision.
It's awesome, and it's a lovely walk too.
We had to change the name.
Oh yes, I didn't mention that. Sorry.
Change the name. They got a bit confused.
Well, the name extended down, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I will invite Councillor Leggett to move the Tupuna Korero from 1st of May.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to move that we accept the recommendations of Tupuna Korero of the 1st of May.
Seconded by Councillor Trillin. No issues with anyone? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Councillor Trillin, your turn, 15th of May.
Thank you very much, Mayor Baker. I move that Council accept the recommendations of Tupuna Korero on the 15th of May 2025.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Leggett. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried. Okay, we move to our first one, which is 11.1, the non-binding referendum. I'm going to move it before I speak to it. So does it have a seconder? Councillor Leggett. Okay, I'll speak to it first. I'm not actually asking for amalgamation, as the title says. I'm asking our residents what they think. I think it's democracy in action to give our residents a voice. I get asked all the time as mayor, what do I think? It's actually what do our residents think. It's more than just one person. And it seems to go round and round. We have government saying you need to do this, but actually stop talking to the politicians and ask our residents what we are. I'm one vote at the table. And for me, it's about local voice and keeping our local voice. And I know it's a non-binding referendum I'm asking for that goes out with our Maori poll. But I still think it's fair to ask our residents what they think on a discussion that has been loud in the community. And it's discussed out there all the time by everybody, by them. I get emails from people saying, don't make it happen. People do make it happen. So let's actually hear from everybody. And I did hope also that it might drive our voting stats up because they're so poor. And also, when we lose water, what else are we going to be doing? So I think there's a number of things out there. So that was where I came from. I really think it's about time we heard from our residents and treated them respectfully. But I will open it up for discussion. Councillor Trillin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Baker. I support this recommendation that you're bringing to us today. In particular, for me, this is largely because we've been talking about this certainly for the entire time that I've been here, for much longer than I've been at council. Often we talk about some form of amalgamation or combining with other councils as being the answer that will solve all of our problems, and other people think that it's going to absolutely destroy everything. I think we need some clear direction from our residents. I really hope that we get a decisive, clear indication from this referendum, whichever way that it goes, because that'll give us a really clear steer on the direction of travel. If it becomes clear that this is what our residents want, then we should actively pursue that. And I think we know that there's a strong case to be made, even if it means that a few of us might lose our jobs. But if it becomes really clear that actually this isn't something that our residents want, then we can stop talking about it. Great, if that's really clear, and we can move on and we can figure out something else. So we're going to have to go out and talk to our residents eventually at some point. The advice that we have is that the best and cheapest, most effective way to do it is alongside another election. We're not running a separate referendum at some point. So it's got to be done at some point. Someone's got to be the first mover. And for that reason, I support this.
Thank you. Councillor Philo.
Just checking my mic's not singing again. Look, I want to be really clear that I'm open to exploring amalgamation. Like most of us around this table, I'm open to anything that will support our city. But I also want to be really clear that I don't support this approach. It's a $20,000 unbudgeted tick box with no real information behind it. It's not just about the cost, it's about value. Ticking a box without proper facts is a stab in the dark. So how useful is the data that we're going to get? It does feel rushed, and doing it during an election, it feels political. Now, we haven't really been properly briefed as a council on the cons, the pros, the implications, and now we're sending out, or want to send out, a vague question framed in a way that could mislead. So the data we get back won't necessarily be reliable, so again, no value for money. Now, you might say there's a comms plan, but it's got to be effective. And let's be honest, our track record with that hasn't been great. So rushing it during a campaign doesn't feel right. Look, Wellington Water at all capacity before that was once pitched as a magic fix for rates and savings, and we've seen how that's turned out. Let's do it properly. I think there are smarter, more cost-effective and more genuine ways to explore amalgamation with clear comms, with a process that people can trust. As I said, I'm open to exploring amalgamation, but it has to be done properly. It's got to be genuine. I think this approach is just throwing money away, $20,000, for nothing meaningful. It's not value for money, it's not responsible, so I can't support it.
Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not going to sing or anything either. So I just wondered, I had a couple of questions. Is the 20K justified given it's non-binding? Was the first one. How will the results be used in our decision making post the results? What else did I have? I'll just ask them all right now if that's okay. Has there been any other commitment or interest shown by other councils in pursuing a joint governance model? Otherwise, it kind of feels a little bit pointless. And could it raise expectations among the public that will not be met as well, and therefore leading to more distrust? I think that was it. Except around, sorry, the last one was how is the council going to ensure that all voices in Porirua, especially Māori and underrepresented communities, are heard in the process?
Do you want to give it a shot or?
The Mayor would like me to answer.
No, I don't have to.
So I cannot remember all your questions now, but the question that the Mayor has drafted is not to bind us into amalgamation or a final place for the council. The question is should we have this conversation with our colleagues? Because we've had some initial conversations at the mayoral forum, and you've seen the media like everyone else. People think that's kind of undercover and secret. So this is an attempt to out that in a more public way, so that people know that we want to have this conversation, and really not much. Well, both a great deal of work and not much work has happened. When I first joined this council in 2014, there was a very large proposal being considered by the Local Government Commission. They ultimately turned that down. Honestly, there was about 10 years' work. There is a mountain of information about this. Has much changed since then? Not very much at all. The boundaries haven't changed. The issues haven't changed. They've probably compounded. And as we face water reform, that's probably the big issue that has kind of motivated this discussion once again. So there's a lot of now older work. It's got a lot of data and a lot of information. But more recently, the conversations have been, should we have this conversation or not at the mayoral forum? The metros are more interested. Nobody much wants to front this. If you recall the 10 years ago, particularly in the Hutt Valley, there was quite a lot of opposition. There was groups set up. There were petitions. It can be very polarising for our community, and as I understand the Mayor's intentions, this is an attempt to try and work through the issue in a more open way, and actually, if people don't even want to talk about it, well, let's not waste our time, because it will absorb some resource internally to do the things that Councillor Philo is talking about. And frankly, that's, could we, water reform is a bit of a mountain right now, but it will die off later this year. So, which kind of coincides with the election, doesn't it? So, over to you whether you want to have the conversation or not, and how openly you want to have that conversation. So, I can't remember the specific questions.
Sorry, I understand the intent of the of the Mayor's recommendation. I just want to know, so was there a commitment or interest from the other councils? And I think you sort of answered it.
So Campbell missed the bucket to put it to theirs. Tori said she didn't have the numbers. So Wayne said he'll go with the flow. So, and I said, well, actually, it's about our residents. It's not about what we think. I'm sick of, as mayor, what do you think? It's not me. I'm one damn vote. Okay. And every time we overlook it, and yes, 20K seems a lot, and I thought it was lower than that, I'll be honest. But at no point do we just, they go, well, maybe the government should do it to us. Well, I don't want it done to us. I want Porirua to actually have a voice and say, either we do or we don't. But either way, we've brought it to table, we've had a discussion. So, I don't mind. I'm not sure I've answered all your questions, though, because we decided not to do any work on it because I don't want to waste officers' time and money.
I agree.
If people go, actually, we're not interested in it. So it is a random question in the sense that I'm asking people what they think, but I don't want to spend money on something if we don't want to do it.
Yeah, and on that, 20K for an extra question, I don't know, is it gold-plated?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Jack will have a better idea of the real cost. If we attempted to run a poll outside of the election, it would be
a lot more.
Much more. So, yeah, can because it's all a mailing, it's actually just another question on the list and the processing of it at the moment. But it's, do you have any notion, Jack?
Outside of an election,
Yeah.
I believe about 150 to 200,000.
It's non-binding. Well, for me, if
We're not allowed to have binding referendums, so all our poll questions would be non-binding. But it's an indication, isn't it? It's a way of so.
It doesn't really do anything for our decision making then.
no. Councillor, be happy.
Thanks. I did have a couple of questions and a comment. So if the government was to force another referendum like they have done with the Māori wards in the future, that would also be a cost to our council, wouldn't it?
Yes.
More or less the same, or?
Dollar-wise, do you know what the Māori ward is the same?
Sorry. So with the Māori ward poll question being added to the voting paper, it's expanding our voting papers from an A4 to an A3. So there's, I believe, about $48,000 worth of cost with the Māori ward poll because of that expansion. But now there's a lot of room on the voting documents, so more things can be added if needed.
Okay, well, that's quite helpful. My next question is, have we spoken to Mana Whenua about this previously to this coming out?
The Mana Whenua have been at the mayoral forum and given their indication.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, so I don't think it's what I think. It doesn't really matter what I think. I think that we should still give our community the option to have a conversation about it. I hate the word amalgamation.
Yes.
Like whoever came up with it should,
That's why it's not in the paper. It ended up on a title.
But I take from the paper the words local government environment has shifted considerably, and that is completely true. It is an affordability issue for our residents going forward. Not saying that if we were to, I'm not going to say amalgamate, join other councils, it's going to be a quick fix, but we should give the opportunity to our community to have a think about it and actually put the effort in and the resources in, if they want it, to be able to explore those options. And I'm thinking down the track. So I'll support it. Thanks.
Councillor Waddle?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think, thanks for bringing this forward. I think it's long overdue that we actually asked the real question, as social media has progressed since this was first bashed about, sort of over 11 years ago. I think I was still in high school when it was first talked about. I was, well, that's a long time ago for me now. I'm feeling old here. But, when it first got bashed about, I was not a fan. I didn't want to lose this local representation we have here in Porirua. But as I've grown and become a part of the fabric here and understood this side of it, our local government system in New Zealand is fundamentally flawed. And we're not going to see any decent change if we don't try looking for it or try and bring it about it ourselves. So I think the $20,000 cost is an effective use of money when we would have to be looking at 10 times more to do it standalone. And if we were to do that, we would be engaging consultants, we'd be getting external help, I'm sure, and we know how much that costs. I think the general gist of what we're trying to achieve here is going to send us a direction and an understanding of what the ratepayers feel. And so I am happy to support this.
Okay. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this forward. I think it's the right thing to do and the right time to be doing it. We can talk about the $20,000, but what price democracy? This is actually asking people what they think, and what a good idea, isn't it? So look, I'm fully supportive of this. It's the right time to do it, and good on you for bringing it forward.
Councillor Leggett?
Well, obviously I support this, and thank you, Mayor, seeing as I seconded it. Thank goodness, yeah. this is not about the detailed structure of what cooperation or anything might look like in the future. This is about democracy, basic democracy, because this thing has been rolling around for years. Let's ask our residents what they think and get a high-level reaction to it. We can then decide what we want to do from there. And I absolutely support Councillor Duncan. You took the wind out of my sails. This is $20,000 is nothing. It's the cost of democracy. This is really high-level stuff, asking a basic question like this. So,
Councillor Hayward?
Tamariki, Your Worship, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa, he kai konahira. This feels like for me, a very tough decision. So I appreciate the courageousness of the Mayor for bringing this forward. But let me be upfront, I am an amalgamation sceptic. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to all amalgamations. I am a Norths rugby supporter.
Hold it higher, hold it higher.
I could have bought
And a member of the 100 Club. It's been 30 years since Titahi Bay and Porirua amalgamated into one club. Now this season the whānau are carving it up. Te Tāne, not so much. But whether it's a good or a bad season, I am ride or die, tātou tātou. So I'm not opposed to amalgamation outright. And I know I'm legally required to keep an open mind. But the usual arguments I hear simply don't hold water. I'm going to take some time just to unpack those arguments if we're going to have this go out to the community. First, does amalgamation mean more investment to our community? I believe no. Whether we're a small council or a large one, we're still bound by the same central government rules, especially about how much we can borrow to fund infrastructure. Size doesn't shift those settings. Second, amalgamation doesn't magically increase council revenue. People often assume that more population means more money overall, but that's not how rates work. It's like thinking a busier mall means higher rates income. It doesn't. Councils still face a stacked deck when trying to fund public good projects, and especially when the economic benefits are regional, but the revenue tools are local and limited. On a related note, it may be true that rates may go down for people in Porirua compared to the rest of the region, but as was the case when Auckland amalgamated, that meant residents in other councils had their rates go up. I struggle to see how any council would sign up to make their rates bill go up, only to have the overall revenue stay about the same. Third, economies of scale. Well, we're already having to talk about a separate water entity. Half the transport budget is subsidised by central government. We're still going to need dog pounds, emergency management. We won't be selling parks or closing up pools or libraries. There might be some savings there, but I just don't see this as some big win for your back pocket. Furthermore, we don't need amalgamation to collaborate effectively. Porirua is working alongside Wellington and Hutt City on things like organic waste, construction and demolition waste. We've got similar approaches on trade waste too. We're already harmonising services where it makes sense without the disruption or dilution of amalgamation. Fourth, and this is a big one, representation. If you're pro-amalgamation, you have to be honest about what that means for local voice. It's not just about new branding and merged spreadsheets, it's about how residents are heard and represented. Amalgamation doesn't automatically boost voter turnout or civic engagement. In fact, it risks weakening the local connection. I want to quote Brendan from Titahi Bay. He sent this in an email to me. Since the creation of the Auckland Super City, voter turnout in local elections has declined every election, and in 2022 it was just over 30% there. That, I suggest, is an indication of people feeling more and more alienated by that big, soulless, impersonal city, end quote. So unless central government is willing to change the rules around democratic engagement, we won't see the transformative potential that some amalgamation advocates might imagine. So, why am I reluctantly supporting this referendum? Because after all of the kōrero, and it feels like we have to address these same points and the debates that we have around this table ad infinitum, we cannot start unless we move back to the people. He puna o te tangata. So this referendum is not seen as a decision to amalgamate. It's about asking our community if they want us to look into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. If we're going to move forward, or decisively not, we need to do it together, and we need to have it grounded in the voice of our people. I would also note as well that the cost of doing this is significantly cheaper than to walk down that path without that voice and only to have them say, actually, we never wanted this in the first place. In my heart, I still believe we have bigger challenges to face here in Porirua. So while I remain sceptical, I will vote in favour of asking the question and I will continue to challenge any assumptions that are baked into this debate. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor, we have you have a question?
Sorry, Your Worship, it was just, I just wanted to ask my colleague here, just to get clarification, if we were just asking the question, not making a decision or predetermining what was happening at it, but you answered that question.
Okay, thank you. Taku, did you? Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with mahi tahi, working together and doing stuff together. But we are Porirua, but we need to know what our community wants and how we move forward. So,
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you all. I think everybody's had their say. Mose is obviously sick because he hasn't joined in, and his message was he was not well. So I will put the vote. So all those in favour, do you want a hand or you just want all those in favour? All those against? Just Councillor Philo? Yep, okay, we'll record that. Thank you. That was passed. Oh, well, sorry then. 12.1, approval of dog control fees. I'm going to move it to put it on the seconded by Councillor Ford.
And also for the public notice. I just highlight that there's two fees outside the 5% threshold, which is sort of the standard for regulatory fees, and that was the euthanasia of dogs and surrendering dog fees. And it's basically to put the fees up so that they'll recover the costs.
Okay, Councillor, are we happy?
Thank you. Couple of questions there around the surrendering and the euthanasia and whether or not, whether it's voluntary, non-voluntary. It's kind of like double dipping. So if someone was to surrender their dog, because they have to or they need to, they would then pay a surrender, and then they would pay euthanasia on top of that, with that increase of $220.
I'm not sure, sorry.
That's the way it reads. Nick.
Yes, Nick can, sorry.
Can I come back to you on that, Councillor Wehapi, because I'm not 100% sure. So it's a good point and we'll follow up.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, so I'm just a bit uncomfortable at the moment just with those two. I do understand that actually that is a lot cheaper than vets for euthanising a dog, but if they're going to be using them together, I think that's a bit of a stretch, considering some of these people that are surrendering their dog can't actually afford to have them. So that's something that I wanted to bring up. Also, I do note in there the argument that if we don't put the fees up, some of it is covered by the ratepayer, and that's fine, but I could also say that Mrs. Smith down the road doesn't have children, but she still pays for the service of a playground and park. So I don't really think that that's a fair, a fair
assumption.
Thank you, analysis. The other thing is that although I'm not against the 5% increase because, we have to increase, but year after year after year after year, we have increased the dog fees hugely, and yet some of our facilities haven't been upgraded for years either. So that's just like staying at a 2-star motel and paying a 5-star price. So I just wanted to note as well that our facilities have not been upgraded for a long time as well, and that's something to look at in the future if we're going to keep putting these fees up, hiking them up.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Nick would like to comment.
Can I just comment on that?
Yes, Graham, and then Nick.
Thank you. In terms of our revenue and financing policy and what we've set through the LTP, we've set the 5% increase through the 10 years. In that 10-year period, the fees and charges recover between 55 and 60% of the cost of animal control, and the general rates are 40 to 45. So effectively, the fees are only holding it above where, in terms of it's paying slightly more than half of the costs, and under the revenue financing policy of council, it's more of a private benefit than a public benefit, so the fees should cover more. So it is doing that, but it's only really staying sort of just above the halfway.
Nick?
Through you, Chair, just on the dog pound facility, we have actually invested a little bit in upgrading the pound. So we have improved the lighting, we've improved the surfaces, so covered the block work. We've improved temperature and just the overall facility. So the one thing we haven't managed to fund is bigger exercise areas, but we've increased the exercise areas. So we have invested a reasonable amount of money just renovating it and upgrading it to some basics, better standards, and its capacity at the moment is holding okay. So we have done a bit there to make sure that the dogs are as well looked after as we can. Yeah.
Thank you. I have no issues in the running of it. It's just the the cost side of it. Cool. So I'm comfortable with this, but in principle, but I'm not comfortable at the moment with the costs of the euthanasia and the surrender until I find out that information, whether or not they'll have to pay both.
Councillor Trillin?
Thank you. Just a clarifying question. What would the rating impact be if we were to progress with option 2?
Do not approve the proposed fees is option 2. If we don't approve, Graham.
This is a bit of a tricky thing anyway. Can I just explain a bit more on this? Council's already approved a 5% increase for the 3 years already. So we would have to, and what this was done, it was brought back to council because of those 2 fees outside the 5% threshold, so we had to bring the whole thing back to council again. So that's sort of a bit of a background to this paper. If we don't increase the fees, depends on, I'm not sure of the exact cost because I haven't got those numbers, but we would then dip below probably where we're sitting with the revenue financing policy because that's already assumed those 5% fees were through the 10-year period of the LTP.
Just further to that, in the absence of specific numbers, are you able to guide us on what order of magnitude we're talking? Like, is this a point something of a percent is going to be the likely impact?
Correct. It wouldn't be a large impact.
Okay, all right. I think in principle, but based on the arguments we're seeing here, I support this. I think if we're increasing fees to match those costs as they're going up, we're having a big discussion at the moment about everything that we can potentially cut to reduce that impact on rates. And to me, it would be nonsensical to, on one hand, spend our time doing that, consulting on that through the annual plan process, and then deciding without consultation around this particular issue that we're going to put that back on the rates. It wouldn't be consistent with the approach that we're taking, and particularly given that it seems these costs are still significantly lower than if you went and did it privately through a vet. Understand we never want to put up fees if we can avoid it, but it seems that that's the sensible thing to do here, so I'll be supporting it.
Anyone else? Councillor Leggett.
Obviously, I support this. I'm not sure why you asked the question about option 2, Josh, because we don't want to walk this back, and we've already approved this in principle anyway. But I do agree with Councillor Weehapi in terms of the $110. How are we going to handle that in terms of, do we need an amendment or how's that going to go?
I suspect that's an operational issue about how you levy the fees rather than, so we can take that on board and write some operating procedures to confirm that, Nick.
Yes, correct. We can do that.
Okay.
Good. Can a second question?
Yep.
It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek question.
I'm sure you'll ask it anyway.
Yeah, no. These come into effect on the 30th of June. Is that correct?
From 1 July.
Oh, 1 July.
1 July
Yeah.
for the
one day, it won't
fees.
make any difference to me. If I pay my dog fees tomorrow for next year, can I do that?
Well, the increase wouldn't be in there.
No. Well, exactly. That's my
It will
point.
be. No, because you're paying the fees for next year's registration.
So I can't pay them ahead at the existing rate?
The invoices go out in June.
Okay, but I
So
can't
you haven't got an
walk
invoice?
in.
No,
Well,
you can't.
Do I need an invoice? I can go and pay, can I? I'm just asking the question.
My understanding is no, you can't.
I don't give a toss about $8, quite frankly, but I'm just the principal.
Okay, Nick would like to say something.
So through the chair, I have just asked the team and got a response. So I can confirm that the surrender fee covers the euthanasia, so it's not charged twice when they're surrendering the dogs.
Thank you.
May I say thank you? Thank you.
May. Anybody else like to speak? No? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Lower Main Drive, I'm going to move that to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor Duncan. It's just approving the rename, which we've actually already done. So it's a tick box really, Leonie. I'm not sure you need to speak to it, so I'll just check. Does anybody got any questions? Councillor Leggett.
We've already approved it, then why are you coming here? Why are we...
Because we opened it before it came.
Well, what if,
Because
what if council said...
it's an extension of an...
Sorry,
It's an extension of an existing road.
No, I
Yeah.
don't disagree with that. What if council said, no, we don't agree?
We changed the sign.
We changed the sign, yeah. Yeah. Hang on, I've got Councillor Wehapi and then Councillor Duncan.
I just, sorry, because I haven't seen it on the actual sign of Kāria there. It's got the Tohi Toa on it. The Macron? Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
Mine's just a comment, really. I drove up the other day. Magnificent. Looks fantastic. And the post, stunning, striking. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, yes, you may, Taku.
Just to comment on the street naming sort of processes that were undertaken, particularly choosing from the youth's point of view, is that during the early 30s and 40s, all our main streams were diverted and disappeared. So what we're trying to do and endeavouring to do is to get those original names back onto the lips of our children, our community.
Yeah.
Because one stream is classic is over here, now it's piped out that way, disappeared out of sight. And those names, not everything, not everyone, but at least some of the main original ones, if that's okay. That's
It's a great idea.
Just a bit of an explanation.
Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Worship. And Taku, thank you for your comments there. Because those spaces have mana. And so bring their name back also brings back their mana as well. Two questions. One, can officers just give some commentary as to how we got to having to retrospectively name this street? Because obviously that's not what we would agree to be normal process. Could I get some commentary around that?
Morena, through you, Worship the Mayor. So how that came about was a decision to actually bring it to council, but it was scheduled for the opening. So the details of timing, I suppose, and around some of the, has been busy leading up to, up to this time, and there was a demand, but maybe.
Yes, through the chair. Look, it's simple to say it slipped through the gaps. And so with the opening, we really wanted to get the second half of the street named. It seemed reasonable to have the whole street named because of the stages of the development. It fell through the gaps. And hence we're following due process to bring it back to you to make sure we are following our process to the letter.
Thank you for the explanation, and I understand the sincerity of the explanation. Thank you. One other question associated to this, obviously, is can officers give a commentary on the progress with regards to the review of the street naming policy? I know that council had gone out for public consultation. Where are we with that?
We'll bring it back to the new council, so it'll be quite early on in the new council's term.
Yep. Councillor Philo.
Just a quick question. Just want to make sure that the school and the church have had a heads up about this change.
So their addresses haven't changed. So their addresses are off Kinaparu Drive. So they have access off, if approved, Kariaria, but the actual addresses have not changed.
No, I get that. I'm just asking if they've had a heads up about it. Because obviously I'm just thinking about when they're giving directions or, even they might have publications where they might have listed that street name. So
as I understand, yes.
They have been given a heads up.
I think some of them were at the blessing.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Now we're moving to the pilot waste minimisation scheme. In there I will know B.2, the councillor is Councillor Hayward. So I want to add that in. So I'm going to move it to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor, I'm not sure yet. Councillor Ford. Sorry, you're in there. I'm not sure you should second your own. Sorry. So I'm going to open this up for questions. I'm not sure we got any staff coming? You are, David. Yes.
You said Councillor Hayward.
At 2, yeah, B,
His
2,
name-
B2.
Sorry? So you're going to put his name in there?
Yes,
Why?
by officers in one
Because
councillor. I'm
that
saying
may
Councillor
change
Hayward.
in the future, and we'll have to go back and change
We
it
will
again.
change that at,
I'm not
yeah, in the new
against it, I'm
triennium.
just-
Yeah.
just putting people's names in.
We do traditionally take councillors' names.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Because otherwise we could invite any old councillor.
Yeah.
But,
So at the new elect,
I mean,
That wouldn't happen, but yes.
I misspoke. It's traditional to name the councillor.
okay. So questions. Who had questions? Councillor Leggett.
Oh, look, I'm for this, given that it's money that's coming from government, levied upon us. It had nothing to do with Jeff. He'll be a fine councillor on this. Just the question of, and I guess it's covered in the other bits and pieces, how are we going to track success of this? Will this come back to us after a year in terms of, criteria and how we need to change things or whatever?
Thank you, Your Worship. Success in the first instance, so we're suggesting a 12-month pilot. So it is likely that any waste minimisation actions will probably take a little longer to prove to bear fruit, if you like. But success for the 12-month pilot would be who's actually applied, what have they applied to do, is there good take-up, and are there worthwhile projects? If we can get across that, then, as I've mentioned in the report, we've budgeted for a little bit longer. So success will be, did people set the project up and meet their objectives?
That's it. Councillor Filo.
Look, I support this, but I do have a couple of questions. The report makes a pretty strong case, I think, for option 3 around business-led projects overseen and having delivered more in terms of waste reduction. And we know businesses generate a big portion of landfill waste, and they have the capacity to co-invest, to act quickly, and to scale their solutions. And I guess given the fact that the main focus here is to reduce waste, and businesses are likely to have that bigger impact on waste reduction than community reports, as the report says, I'm just wondering why we weren't, why option 3 wasn't recommended.
Yes, I'll make some clarity on that. When I came to council to the workshop a few weeks ago, we had two options. One was to open the minimisation grant scheme and offer it to non-profit only, and that was option 1 in the original report. Option 2 was to open it more broadly to all entities, and that was option 2. So just to bring to your notice, there is an error in paragraph 34. For this report, I've added our do nothing option. That became option 1. Not-for-profit only became option 2, and all entities became option 3. But my error, I haven't changed the option numbering in paragraph 34, where I've referred option 2. The recommendation in the report, to be very clear, is the report option 3, open the waste minimisation grant scheme to all entities, both community groups and business groups.
Oh, great.
Right, just
Okay,
for clarity.
Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, Your Worship, and I'm going to be voting in support of this. It's the kind of initiative that reflects the best of what local government can do. It's backing our communities, to lead solutions using existing levers wisely and investing in long-term change. First, I want to acknowledge the leadership of our council staff. Kaumātua, thank you for bringing this to the table. Getting something like this ready for council consideration is no small feat, and I thank you for the commitment to our waste minimisation goals. This grant scheme empowers our communities. We know that there are whānau, kura, churches and neighbourhood groups already rolling up their sleeves and leading the way. This fund gives them some backing, not to start something new necessarily, but to amplify what's already happening. It's also a smart use of the waste minimisation levy. That's money designed to support these kinds of initiatives. Using it here reduces pressure on rates. It supports our collective goal of reducing landfill. This is also grounded in our Porirua Local Action Plan, which is part of the Wellington Regional Waste Minimisation and Management Strategy. So it's not just a project on its own, it's part of a broader waka that we all get to paddle across the region. Yes, it's a pilot. There will be lessons, there will be adjustments, but it's a start and that's what matters. We've already seen what local leadership looks like, and I'm going to mihi Iranei, Vaila Akui and the team at Atamu-esque Porirua for their long-standing work in this space. They came to the long-term plan last year, and this is what was in their submission. PCC doesn't have a strategy in place to make any real change to landfill by diverting organic waste, which in 2009-2010 made up 28%. They came to seek the support of council in 2017 for a community compost that did not go through at that time. So they piloted and developed their own program called Whatu Ola. It teaches children to compost and recycle, and their compost now regularly supplies nutrients and fertiliser for the vegetable garden, which also feeds the school and families. That is leadership, and this scheme is about supporting more of that. Now, some of my council colleagues have suggested that a better approach would be to provide free landfill vouchers. I recently caught up with Makarita Makapelu from Wesley Community Action. She reminded me of something that was very important in this. A voucher won't mean anything if you don't have access to a car or a trailer or both. We have to recognise that systemic barriers exist. And this scheme is one of many ways we can use existing pūtea to prevent waste from ever needing to head up to the landfill in the first place, in a way that improves equity for all, especially with those with the least. So finally, while this grant is a start, it must be paired with continued support for the many other groups in the city doing the mahi every day. Enviro Schools, Wesley Community Action, Wellfed, many others. They are a vital part of this ecosystem. Supporting them is how we create real and lasting change. Kia ora.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with it. I had questioned whether 2K was actually enough to get things done, and as they said, through schools, no, and I just wondered if it wasn't enough, but the officers have explained to me, yes it is, and I do support it when I see what's happening. There's Porirua Bay, obviously Wesley, Wellfed, and there's so many groups doing it, so this is going to encourage more, so I do fully support it. Councillor Philo and then Councillor Trillin.
Yeah, it was just to go back to what the officer said, because paragraph 34, or point 34, says option 2 is the officer recommended option, and he was saying now it's option 3. What do we need to do? Do we need to make an amendment to say that we're voting for option 3, or is it a note? What's the process?
I didn't move an option. I just moved 1 and 2 where it's written. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Trillin.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can speak. I think that issue is addressed as long as when you put the motion, you put it as option 3, Mayor Baker, as if that's made clear.
Yeah.
But I'll speak to this now as well, if that's okay. Yeah, I support this. I think while I do have a personal preference that this fund that we're using is able to be used for not-for-profits where possible, and there's responsibility, I think, by profit-driven enterprises to do these sorts of things without council subsidy. At the same time, we've got to be cognizant of the environment we're in and of the requirements that are actually in place right now. And I think if there is an opportunity for council to enable environmentally better practice through a process like this, it's entirely appropriate that we look at it, and I think we should leave that scope open. So for that reason, I do support option 3, even though I prefer the money to flow to not-for-profits where possible or community groups. I think that having that panel in place through an approval process is the appropriate way to deal with that. I've got faith that through that process that the panel will be able to look at what are the applications we have in place. Is there a really good proposal from entities that may not be able to fund these things themselves that we can actively enable? But also, are there opportunities to have a really positive impact on Purirua's environment through enabling activity that otherwise might not happen. And to my mind, it wouldn't make sense to deny ourselves that option. So while my instinctive reaction when I was initially reviewing this paper was to support option 2, on reflection I am happy to support option 3. I think it's really important that we're doing this, and I just want to reflect that this is exactly the sort of thing that we've had requests from residents for in the past. And I recall in particular, I believe it was our previous long-term plan in my first term, where community groups coming in and asking about how council could support things like this. At the time we said we were unable to do it because we didn't have the money set aside. This will enable those sorts of things, and I'm thinking about community composting initiatives and things like that. So overall this is really positive, really happy to support it, and thank you very much to officers for all the work that you have done.
Thank you. Councillor Leggett?
Look, I
Jeff.
agree with fellow councillors. I'm going to support this, but I just wanted to ask, what, with other councils doing this, do they collect evidence about actual reductions of waste streams to landfills? And if so, are we going to be doing the same? Because I think it'll be quite difficult to judge, given that it's a bit of a moving feast all the time in terms of waste streams to landfills. Whether this is successful or not overall.
The officer in my team who prepared this report had inspected grant schemes at other councils, including looking at how the likes of Auckland City, who have a bigger scheme than this, how do they actually go back and measure success with respect to setting up the process. So the next step for us is properly detailing and defining the process. We would be looking to request that an application is made with some indication of how the reporting back would occur. But as I said before, it's 12 months, so we might not see that so soon, but we would certainly be looking for return of information from applicants as part of their request.
No, I accept that. That's great. So is there evidence that in other councils that they have seen a reduction in waste streams going to the tip in terms of tonnages or whatever else? Has there been any work done on that?
No, through the chair, I can't recall that we've seen that type of data.
So I can probably add a bit there through you. Yeah, so I used to look after this fund at the Ministry for Environment. It's very difficult to directly draw a correlation between the inputs and what actually goes into the landfill. You can only ever have a best guess, and if it's something like toners from photocopies, you can count the number of toners that have been diverted and you can measure that by weight. But when you're dealing with millions of tonnes of waste, it's very difficult, as the core measure for waste, it's very difficult to determine if a $2,000 community scheme has actually made a massive difference. So it's a wee bit of a leap of faith. And actually, tonnage isn't the only success story here. It's also communication and getting the message out there that is part of our success story as well. So not able to do it in a way that is quite maybe as mathematical as you would like, but there are definitely indicators we can look for.
I mean, mathematical is not necessarily the way to go, and I understand that. But it's about gathering information and data where you can to show that these things are successful, and so that you can add it to you can reinforce with people about what's been successful, what particular scheme has been successful, or what hasn't, so that you can use that for future decisions.
Okay, anyone else? So I am moving it to agree to a pilot minimisation grant scheme in the financial year 25-26 in accordance with recommendation option 3, and then we've got Councillor Hayward added at B2. So all those in favour? Yeah. All those against? Carried. We now move to our quarterly growth report. I'm going to move it, seconded by Councillor Trillin. And how are we going to do this? Officer comment or Nick?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just want to introduce the quarterly growth report. This is the first time we've brought this to you, councillors. The main purpose is to, monitor our progress towards the growth strategy, and to give you some of the basic or core metrics on what is happening out in the building environment environment in the city. So this is our first one. We are open to getting feedback about other information you would like to have in it. We're proposing to bring this to you every 3 months, and we hope that it's of value to you as you're talking to the community and able to share information. I do just want to qualify that on the map on the Northern Growth Area, which is on page 26 of the document, 70-something of Diligent, that has been taken from the LTP and has changed since it was put into the LTP. So it's page 79, thank you, Jim. It is basically important to look at the numbers on Northern Growth Area as a range and an estimate. So there's 7 sites, all at different stages with different levels of planning, where we consider a 4,000 to 5,000 house range across the entire site reasonable, but please be aware that it may change as more detail comes to hand as those sites are further developed and density is considered within them. And with that, I will take the paper as read and answer any questions.
I had one question on page 74 on it. It says Pacific View, Whitby, 84. Is that the Talima Estates? Because I don't think it's Pacific View.
Sorry, through the chair.
Is it different?
I'll check that. I'm not sure.
Okay, okay, thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Look, thanks very much for this report. It's superb. The detail's amazing in it. Just one thing that intrigued me on page 80, referencing projected housing growth and focusing on Kaumātua proposing building more than 161 homes, but not occupying the additional homes till the network capacity to support them is in place. And I thought that's pretty noble of them. And I wondered then, how much restraint is Wellington's northern growth showing to protect our capacity of our networks?
Good question.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of that, but it's something we'll note for.
We'll have to come back to you on that.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, officers, for launching this reporting approach. I agree with the sentiment that's being attached to why this would be a useful tool. Reading this report, I've got 2 questions. One is kind of being asked by Councillor Duncan, but I do want to just dial down into that in a bit more detail if possible. What are our levers, or what position do we have in terms of encouraging Kāinga Order to further assist with the improvements to the infrastructure so as to prevent the situation which is mentioned here, the so-called noble attribute of keeping state houses empty, which when we still need those houses to be available for use in the community?
Thanks, Councillor. You'll be aware that there is a metamorphosis occurring at Kāinga at the moment. What you are talking about is very much part of that metamorphosis, and we are engaged with them to ensure that, insofar as is possible, Porirua interests are not lost. However, we're not in control of all of the inputs, as you be aware.
I'll move on to my next question, but before I do, just to say that please reflect my view on this, which is that an empty lot of grass where no state house is built and a state house which is not occupied because it's been nobly left vacant is the same thing when it comes to the challenge of housing for those who have the least.
We have been notified our budget has not been cut, so the money is still there.
I
know what you're saying because I agree.
Moving to page 64 of Diligent, which is the graphs with regards to the projection in households and population when compared to the housing and business capacity assessment as part of the National Policy Statement. There is, at all points along those projections, no convergence between our LTP and the HBA assessment. This is 2 parts. One, is there a consequence for us to not have that convergence in terms of our estimations, in terms of what central government could force upon us? And the second part of that is, why is there such a wide convergence I'm not talking about actuals. The actual looks like it's tracking alongside the LTP. Why are those 2 not converging up?
I'll answer through the chair, answer the second one first. that it was a lot to do with the timing of the quite strong growth coming from the late 2010s, and the initial estimates going into the HBA assumed that was going to continue to a degree. The actual growth we received in the years following was down, and so all it is the projections are saying, we overestimated how quickly we were going to grow, and we pulled that down. I think relating to your first point, there is a new HBA being started at the moment. They'll be out next year, and so that will reflect the latest projections, which will be lower. In terms of impact from central government, I can't comment on what they may take from that.
I can only reflect just in regards to that. I don't have any more questions, but I just want to reflect that my concern is that there may be central government pressure to meet objectives that cannot be realistically projected, or using relevant data to project that conclusion, and that puts us in an imposition as a council meeting expectations that could never be met from central government's perspective. Kia ora.
Okay. Councillor Leggett?
Thanks for the report. I think it's great, and it'll be good to see going forward how this develops. I guess what you've highlighted in here, and as we all know, is about infrastructure issues. And what concerns me and will concern others around the table is how we're going to, we've got stuff in the LTP, but how we're going to emphasise this with the new water entity around things like, development contributions and the other Three Waters network bottlenecks that are obviously evident. I mean, it's I just raise it as a question, and I know I just wondered how we're going to place ourselves with a new water entity going forward.
Councillor, it's probably a question we can best respond to next week when we are specifically coming to you with the Three Waters report.
I'm happy to do that. It's just that this, it highlighted it for me how important this issue is, and we know
it's on the agenda for next week. Yep.
Thank you.
It is. It is a very good report. So anybody else got any questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, just a quick one. Just on page 13 of the report, 66 in our papers, around the limbs, that trend line is really starting to shoot up. Is that putting constraints on the team that deal with these requests?
Through the chair, they've definitely said they're busy, but as far as I'm aware, it's not having an impact on the timeliness of getting those limbs out. There's probably also, if it follows the housing market, there's probably a seasonal impact, so it may have peaked over the summer and will come down a little bit, but yeah, they're managing.
Councillor Trillin?
Thanks. Not a substantive question, actually, just a very quick process clarification, just the difference between the recommendations and the discussion and options, where it indicates that the report will be brought to TPK every 3 months versus the report being brought to council every 3 months. So that's just at item 4 there. I just wanted to clarify, is the intention to come to both or just to TPK?
I thought it would come to TPK and then signed off at council.
Usually we would go to Puna Kōrero, but we had a timing and volume issue with our papers, so we thought rather than delay it, we would bring it to full council. But normally it will go to Puna Kōrero.
Okay, cool. All good. Thank you.
Councillor Leggett, I'll let you have one more.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I was just GDP growth. And maybe we should ask our economic speaker who's coming up shortly, but I just wondered why our GDP growth, are there any reasons for our GDP growth in Porirua having dropped so markedly compared to the rest of the region?
Through the chair, I think that's something Infometrics Brad can talk to a lot more.
He's waiting outside.
Yes, but I will note that we will try and include some more of that context in future reports.
That would be good. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to move the paper. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried. 12.5, Tamariki and Rangatahi status report. I'll move it to put on the table. Councillor Hayward seconded. We're going to... Oh, it's still you, Kieran. Sorry. Sorry, I just saw staff move in. So anybody got any questions here? Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no. thank you again for the report. There is data in here, obviously, of NEET, not in education or training for Porirua. If I've read that correctly, it's irrespective of where that education is taking place. Can I just confirm, do we have a breakdown of data for those who are in Porirua-based establishments, the WA, Whitireia, I've forgotten what the private provider is, but do we have that data available as well?
Through the chair, that's not public, but what we'll do is we'll note that, and for next year's one, we can make an OIA to get that level of detail.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Councillor Hayward? Sorry, Councillor Weehappy, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Can you just explain to me in the there's a graph here. I mean, I've read it, but doing okay but getting worse. How does that work?
Through the chair, so referring to the sort of the summary table. So I guess there's two different aspects. One is look at Porirua results compared to nationally. So it's possible that the results as they are now are good compared to national results, but if we look at compared to last year, maybe they're trending down. So there's a combination of both where it's at and where it's heading, which is how you get that combination of it could be good and getting worse, it could be bad and getting better, it could be...
Sorry, I just felt that incredible, but that's cool. Also, who did we reach out to in regards to the satisfaction of the council facilities graph that you've got in there? Who did we question?
Through the chair. Yeah, that comes from our annual resident survey. So I guess one thing to note with that is that, like most councils, we use the electoral roll to randomly select people, which would mean you have to be 18 plus. So it's not necessarily talking to children and their views on it.
That particular part of the report is kind of give or take, right? Like it's not a true reflection of what the Tamariki, of course, then.
Yes.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thanks for the report. It's fulsome indeed. Page 81, background item 5, status report. It tells us that in some instances, results for 2024 were not available, so the most recent data was available. That's 2023 data, is it, that you're working on?
Yes, there's a few cases.
A few?
From the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education where it takes them some time to pull their stats together, so the 2023.
So when we look through the data, when I look at table 10, how we're tracking, and the indicator summary on page 92, are those data all 2024, or what percentage of them would be 2023 data, and so pretty useless really?
Overall, through the chair, I would say it's probably less than 10% older than 2024. Yeah. Most of this data was available for 2024.
Okay. That would be good to see that at the beginning, because it sort of coloured the reading there. Thanks.
Councillor Legger?
Look, I know this is data gathered. The comments that I make are immunisation rates, while they may be reasonable compared to New Zealand, 71% or whatever it is, it's still nowhere near good enough for herd immunity. And, you know, it just stands out to me. And the other thing that I just wondered was the people that were in emergency housing, where have they gone? Do we know in Porirua?
Through the chair.
Or that were in emergency housing?
That's not available in the public stats. If we've asked working income for that, I'm not aware of it.
Councillor Ford?
Yeah, immunisation is a tricky one because it is personal choice. So they can do all they like, I guess, to try and encourage that. My question was around point 9, the job seeker support. With the new sanctions driven by the new government, is that likely to drop?
Through the chair, that's a good question. I think it's one factor. I think we'll have to watch it and see what happens.
Okay, cool. And then at point 6, in the past, officers have sent a copy of report to CEs. That's going to happen again this time around. Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Cool, thanks. That was me.
Okay, no one else. I will put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. I'll move we go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Waddle. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. at the end though. Yeah. Yeah. Not now. Yeah, yeah. On now. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Waddle. I also need to move that Tom Coleman from TLJ Associates will remain in the public